can access interpretation services for today's meeting. Just be mindful that the interpretation channels are not yet open on the Zoom, and after the interpreters are able to provide an explanation, those will be opening on Zoom for people to access that. Oh, that will be open. Great. Awesome. So let's go ahead. If there's somebody in the public that is in person that needs interpretation, please see our friends at MAPC to make sure that you get those services for you. We're gonna start with Spanish. For interpreter, if you're able to come off mute and provide explanation on how to join your channel. Let's go ahead with Portuguese.
If they're in their rooms,
they should be able to switch to the English.
Thank you. Let's go back to Spanish. Let's go ahead with Haitian Creole. Mandarin.
Interpreters, please switch to the English channel so that we can hear you.
Let's try again. Mandarin. Thank you. Cantonese. Go ahead, Spanish. Thank you. Arabic. Arabic. Thank you. Amharic. Awesome. Thank you. So thank you, interpreters, for being here with us today. Now the globe should be open already. So if you are somebody in the room, particularly in the Zoom room, that you can pick also the English channel to ensure that if somebody is using the interpretation services in their own language, you're able to hear them in English. Please be mindful when you're speaking, particularly for task force members, speak slowly. Like that, the interpreters can hear you and speak loud enough for the owl to hear you. Yeah. For the public, if you're attending in person or remotely, if time allows, we will be opening the floor for public comments. You're welcome to address the task force in your preferred language, as I mentioned, and the interpreters will be available to translate your message. Recording, interpretation. So the Zoom chat will be open for task force members during today's meeting, though private messaging will be disabled. We're encouraging task force members to use the right hand feature on Zoom or here in person if you would like to speak. And please remember that all chat messages are part of the public record and will be included to the meeting minutes. To help keep things running smoothly, kindly keep your microphone muted unless you're actively addressing the working group. Our colleagues at MAPC will be monitoring the chat to ensure that comments and questions are captured during the designated discussion period. If you're not a task force member, we ask that you hold off on using the chat until the public comment period at the end of the meeting, if there's time. Before we look at our agenda, I would like to call this meeting to order. Meeting to order. If you are present, please unmute yourself and clearly state present so we can record your attendance. I will repeat it back your response to ensure that we capture your response. You will also notice that our official task force co-chairs are here today with us, and they are the voting members, and they will help us lead the discussion today with MAPC. With Monica and myself will help keep the logistics of this meeting running. Starting with Undersecretary Maria Belén Power.
Present.
Present. Commissioner Nicola Chappelle.
Present.
Present. Logan Bailey.
Present.
Present. Derek Neal.
Present.
Derek is present. Kyle Bengal. Absent.
I'm
Keanu
present.
Reed.
Oh, Kyle.
I was present. Here we be.
Are you going for MAPC?
Yes.
Got you.
Ken, are you here with us?
Thanks.
6.
Ken is absent. Jeremy Battle. Jeremy Battle.
President, can you hear me? Present?
Yeah, we can hear you. Present.
Okay, yeah.
Aiden?
I'm
Aiden,
present.
with us? Awesome. Thank you. Aiden is present. Laura?
Present.
Laura is present. Angela? Angela is absent. Francisca? Fran is absent. Lawrence?
Present.
Lawrence present. Sheila?
Present.
Sheila is present. Steven?
Present. Present.
Steve is present. Denise?
I'm here.
Denise is present. Thomas? Absent. David? David is absent. And then so we do have quorum. We do have quorum, and this meeting can continue. Thank you, everybody. We would like to put the norms up again briefly. These are the established task force norms that we collectively have shaped in this space just to make the space welcoming and productive. Please know that these norms can always be revisited. Feel free to reach out to us at any moment if you would like to take that task force. Thank you to everyone that has reviewed the draft agenda for today and providing your input. I think, yeah, the agenda. So this is the agenda that we will be looking into today. Thank you everybody for those that were able to support us on that. Now I would like to pass it on to my colleague Monica.
Thanks, Jonathan, and hi, everybody. So today we're joined by our official task force co-chairs, EEA, Environmental Justice Undersecretary Maria Belén Power, and Commissioner LaChapelle from DCR. We're also joined by Representative Decker, and all three of them will share some remarks about where we are today and the goals ahead of us. And first, I'd like to start off by passing it to Undersecretary Power to say thanks.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming in person. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maria Belén Power, Undersecretary of Environmental Justice and Equity at EEA. And together with Commissioner LaChapelle, we chair the task force, and our colleagues Jonathan and Monica have been our designees, so really want to thank them for doing this work. I also want to thank MAPC for helping us with, logistics, but also facilitation and bringing all of us together. I do want to acknowledge that we've heard a lot of frustrations with the task force. It feels like we did not get off on the right foot, if that's the saying in English. And we want to just acknowledge that these concerns are real. We've felt them and we've seen them. And this is the sort of intention of shifting and sort of resetting the conversation to make sure that we're all building trust and that we're moving forward in sort of a productive way. And so while the task force, we don't expect it to solve decades long of issues and concerns, we do see it as a building block for us at EEA, but also DCR to sort of engage folks in a more meaningful way and have that result in projects that folks feel reflects their priorities. I do, however, just want to reiterate the sort of mandate, the official mandate that we have, which is to provide a report to the legislature. And our deadline is June 30th. So while we see this as a building block for much longer term work, we do have this sort of deadline by June 30th. And the report is meant to include ways to improve outreach, engagement, transparency, and stewardship of the area along Memorial Drive, along the river. And so while these recommendations will be applied broadly, we do sort of want to focus on the scope, but also want to reiterate that DCR will take everything, and EEA as well, to incorporate it in the long-term process and our public involvement plans at the agencies. So I think that's it for my remarks. Just really want to thank DCR, Commissioner, and our colleagues, Jonathan and Monica, for leading this effort, and MAPC and all of you task force members that I know you all have very busy lives, and you're not, getting paid for this. This is sort of free volunteer. So just want to acknowledge all of your time and the importance of your participation here. So I'll pass it back to Monica.
Yeah, thank you,
Great.
Undersecretary. And before we move on to Commissioner LaChapelle, I'd like to hand it off to Representative Decker to say a few words about our purpose here.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's on the commission who's serving, and thank you to MAPC who's been contracted out by the state, and to both the Undersecretary and the Commissioner. I really appreciate that there's kind of trying to figure out where are we on this path, and do we need to sort of course correct? This commission was created with a lot of input from mostly state stakeholders, right? Undersecretary, you and I had conversations about this. I had conversations with the previous commissioner, conversations with Cambridge residents, and then conversations with organizations that actually have been contracted out by DCR over the years. And the goal of this, right, it's one goal. I think what's clear, and I saw this early on, is that hopefully this will inspire something also at the municipal level just in Cambridge, because what's clear is that I spent a year and a half trying to figure out how to engage DCR and the city together to have conversations with residents, and it was pretty fruitless from where I sat. Other people were more successful. And so that also fed into, what will be the silver lining of figuring out how do we ensure that equity is baked into the work of DCR when it comes to looking at the Charles River. This is about conservation. It's about recreation. It's about planting. It's about traffic. It's about development. Anything along the Charles River. And the goal here was to say, at the end of this process, can we bring some people together, particularly since I am a state legislator who are engaging with the state agency of DCR and have been contracted out over the years, to, like Laura Jasinski, I will tell you, I had a really good conversation with you that helped also me think about this. We talked about the kind of recreation that's done along the Charles River, which is meant to bring people to come and use this incredible resource that we have. And part of the conversation we had was, who's deciding what recreation actually takes place? who's giving input about that recreation? Does it reflect the diversity of the community? And are we getting the diversity of people that we want enjoying that recreation? And so we just started having some really good conversations about where does equity take place when we think about this incredible resource, the Charles River. So the only goal for this commission is at the end of the day is to come out with recommendations that DCR and EEA have already embraced and said yes, while the report goes back to the legislature, so people understand the process. When the legislature establishes a commission or a task force, that commission or task force has to report back to the legislature, say, we've done the work, here's what it looks like. Now, only DCR and EEA can actually implement those recommendations. And I have a lot of confidence that the team at DCR and EEA are excited to actually see these as tools to actually get, I think what everybody here wants to is, how do we ensure a diversity of voices when it comes to using and being the guardians and the stewards of this incredible resource along the Charles River? That's it. Now, what we are seeing, and I think in this process, is that the scope of it has been lost at times. I was surprised and appreciated understanding that some members of the task force were sitting on this task force and still not clear that that was the total goal. That was a surprise to me. I thought everybody understood the goal because I'm not on the task force. And so I have been hands off to say that I'm going to create a process that says from here on that people in at least Cambridge will find a way, that DCR will find a way, whether they're doing planning of what is going to be this beautiful redesign of Magazine Beach, or whether they're looking at recreation along the Charles River, or they're looking at traffic patterns, that DCR will do a much more intentional job of reaching out to low-income members of our community and people of color and immigrant communities who have not always been integrated in some of the pre-existing ways in which DCR, and I will say this is no offense to anyone who's sitting here, because this has been historic and their most feeble attempts around community engagement, which has not been, it's not been a stronghold of DCR, whether it was in the MDC or DCR, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that that are not, I think, that are bureaucratic. But I really appreciate that. I think that the team that is here is committed to actually doing it differently. And this task force that in my conversations with MAPC early on about why they thought that they were the right team to do this, was that they actually said that this would be the pilot that they would use to actually go ahead and guide these conversations around the state, that equity was really important to MAPC, and they knew that DCR had these challenges, not just in our community. So that's the only goal. Now, it's hard along the way to not get sidetracked and look at all of the actual real life challenges that exist along the Charles River, whether it's traffic lights, whether it's traffic design, whether it's looking at things that have already happened and whose voices were present and whose weren't. That's not the goal of this task force, right? This is about moving forward, but it's clear that at the end of this, I'm hoping that the city and DCR and the residents will find a way to create something, and that's not a part of this task force recommendation. It's just kind of the aftermath of what I think has to happen, and I will have conversations as well with the city and encourage this, but there needs to be a place where people can bring all these concerns. This commission is not that place. This commission is to say, how do you ensure that moving forward, that we will bake equity into outreach and communication? So it means that I've now seen materials that have gone out, which surprised me, because those materials that went out advertising previous meetings did not give a clear indication. DCR's website that advertised this did not give a clear indication. Now, was not aware of that until it was brought to my attention. But I think we've had lots of conversations. I think we're all on the same page again. I thought we were on the same page, but I think now we are all more intent in sort of making sure this goes forward in the way that it's supposed to. So this is not about undoing any past planning. It was never about that. It is about saying, moving forward, if you're going to actually do something significant along the Charles River, including conservation, right, including deciding to put new plantations, I mean, I'm making this up as I go along because that's not my area of expertise, to figuring out how do you bring recreation, to figuring out traffic. DCR, you will now have a blueprint that says you know how to engage low-income voices. You know how to engage communities of color that have not always been present. And let me be clear that when communities that have traditionally been marginalized by all sectors of government are engaged, I promise that everybody actually does better. We all do better. So this is not about leaving anyone out of the conversation. It's about being more intentional about bringing other voices to the conversation. So as somebody who grew up along the Charles River in public housing, that whole Charles River was a really special place. And I just want to make sure that more families who care about it or who actually need to find ways to be more engaged and actually enjoy it, that happens. DCR, thank you for your work. You have such an important job around the state. And I know that our little tiny spot of the work that you do is so small, and yet your work is really important. It's about understanding how do people enjoy these incredible natural resources? How do we become partners in protecting and become the guardians of these natural resources? These natural resources belong to all of us, and your job is to protect them, is to promote them, and to help create more access. This commission's job is to figure out how do we ensure access is equitable in the input of any decisions that you make moving forward. It is not about anything more and anything less. And only because I now have had more conversations and have looked more closely at the materials do I understand that has not been clear to everyone. I know it should have been clear to everybody here on DCR MAPC because we had many conversations and some of you were part of shaping this. The commission was written as it was written based on a lot of input. Sometimes there's too many attorneys who have input, and maybe sometimes that's what makes things a little bit more complicated to read, but that is the goal. That has always been the goal, and I'm really excited to see at the end of this what these recommendations are, how they empower DCR and EEA, who have completely embraced these goals, not only in this task force, but actually came to this job having professional experience doing that. To the residents who are here, you have been asked to be on this because you represented living within an environmental justice community or you lived in subsidized housing in Cambridge, and your lived experience allows you to be ambassadors for the other stakeholders here at the state level and the state agencies to better have conversations in which you actually get to know each other. There's a lot of advocacy groups here that work with the state agency that may not have had actually these opportunities to engage you. And so this is a really beautiful experience that I think moving forward, now that we're all on the same track, that will result in, I think, people better understanding what it means to actually have real equity baked into DCR. And so I want to say thank you, everybody, for your time. I won't be staying for this whole task force. I'm not on it. I didn't want this to be about me. I want this to be about our community and this process. And we're in session today. So that is very exciting. But just say to thank you to everybody who's also given their time and for the patience. This has been frustrating, and I think we better understand some of the roots of that frustration. Today's meeting should be about how do you reset moving forward, where people feel heard and actually are now understanding what the memo is. I'm trying to figure out how the kids say it, but the brain fog is like there. Just how to move forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Representative Decker. And I also want to recognize there are other members of the delegation here. I think I saw Representative Connolly, if you'd like to say a few words.
Sure. Good morning, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your efforts on this task force. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Chappell and Undersecretary Power. It's a busy day in our Cambridge community as well as on Beacon Hill, so I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person. But as we know, the composition and the framework of this task force has created deep concerns across our community. I feel like in many ways, MAPC was set up with an impossible task. In many ways, we could say you were set up to fail, but I remain ever optimistic that we can work together and achieve a constructive outcome with this task force. As we've already heard, the mission of the task force hasn't been very clear to many participants or to the public. And many key stakeholders were left out of the charge of the task force. The process of creating this task force was not particularly inclusive. When I first saw the proposal for the task force, my first reaction was that we need to bring all of the relevant stakeholders to the table. That's how you achieve a constructive outcome, is when you bring different voices and different perspectives. But we've heard from people in our community who feel like they haven't been excluded or they've been confused by the mission. It's been noted by multiple folks that the city of Cambridge, Harvard, and MIT haven't been officially included. And there's a real concern regarding equitable representation of all of the impacted neighborhoods, as well as key stakeholder and advocacy voices with different perspectives. As a representative of Cambridgeport and other neighborhoods with close proximity to the Charles River, the task force has raised deep concerns for me as well. The charge of the task force relates to equitable access to the Charles River from the Longfellow Bridge to the Elliott Street Bridge, an area that touches on several legislative districts, and yet we know the membership of the task force has skewed particularly to the Riverside neighborhood. So that raises environmental justice concerns, because we know the Cambridgeport neighborhood and other neighborhoods are also environmental justice designated areas. And the spirit of our environmental justice law says that we shouldn't leave anyone behind. So in closing, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but despite these concerns, I'm ever optimistic. I know MAPC is working really hard. It heartens me to see that the commissioner and the undersecretary are here today. And I'm hopeful that as we move forward, we bring everyone into this conversation and reach consensus that helps us move past some of the controversies we've seen in the past and work together to really serve all of the residents of Cambridge and to create equitable access to the river. So thanks for hearing me, and appreciate all of your good work.
Thank you. I just want to just be clear. I always thank my colleague for his comments, although I would disagree with the premise of several of them. Just to be clear that the premise of this, I understand. I have your text where you asked to have Trader Joe's represented, and you wanted more representatives from the Charles River watershed, which actually you wanted 2 more representatives, and they actually decided they didn't want to be part of this at all. I would say that the city of Cambridge was not appointed to be a part of this, because the goal of this was to say that it's about a state agency and understanding how that state agency would create more equity for underrepresented communities, like people of color, people who live in low income. I would say that when I met with Representative Connolly's representative to the task force, who I have a lot of respect for, I was disappointed that that individual did not understand the mission of the task force. I will say that MAPC, DCR, and most of the members here actually understood this, because we had many conversations about this. So the goal here is, again, to say, how does DCR actually build equity for marginalized communities, traditionally marginalized communities, which is what environmental justice is actually about. And that this is not going to be the panacea for all of the challenges that actually operationally people feel regarding the Charles River. It's just to say that, how do we intentionally make sure that people of color, low-income people, and immigrant voices are a part of that? Nothing more, nothing less. So the folks who've been appointed to this actually understood the task, because we had conversations about that. I would recommend my colleague to also create an opportunity for further conversation. And certainly there were opportunities for amendments to change this. But that moving forward, this is about moving forward. We've had lots of really good productive conversations about some of the constraints. And I was disappointed to see that some of the materials about this were not clear. And I think we're all on the same page right now. But I think moving forward, you're either here because you want to figure out, how do people of color and immigrant communities and low-income voices in our community, how are they engaged by DCR? Simple as that. How are they actually learning about meetings? How are they learning about opportunities? How are they providing input? You either believe that that's something you want to be a part of, or you create something else. This is not where community engagement begins or ends, because community engagement is a larger process. And DCR historically has been terrible at that. So organizations in our community that have had the ability to communicate with DCR have had to fight really, really hard, and they've done incredible work. We also know there's been a stark underrepresentation of people of color and low-income communities in Cambridge. So I'm really excited that with all of the incredible work that we have had conversations to get here, that we will do this. None of this is easy. It is hard, it's complicated, it's easy to pick at, but we have the opportunity at a time in which our country is actually making it harder to talk about equity. At a time in which our country is going after people who look like the very communities that we're meant to engage, we have the time to move forward. And so I think if there's any other comments about this, let's take it out of the task force. I'm happy to have a conversation in meetings, but I just want to say to everybody here who understands the assignment, thank you for your work. Thank you for doing what is really, really hard work in any given day, but it's the important work. It's why I show up as an elected official. And it's why many of you actually show up in the work that you do, what you bring here, and as residents have shown up. So I thank you for that. I have 2 of my bills coming up for a vote today, so I'm going to actually step out. And I welcome my colleague to meet with me in the chamber. We sit about 4 feet apart, so I'm happy to have a further conversation then. Okay, you guys have a great day, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we realize we have another task force member that just joined us today.
I'm calling on Ken to say that you're present on the meeting, please.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And recognizing it's a very busy day in session right now, I just want to make sure that there's no other members of the delegation present here that would like to say a few words before we move on. Okay.
I'm sorry, what did you just say, Mark?
I'm asking if there's any other members of the delegation here who would like to say a few words.
Any other reps?
Yeah,
Just as a group.
myself.
Oh, no, as from the state house, elected representatives from the state house. Yeah.
So,
Giving them another committee.
so I'd now like to ask Commissioner LaChapelle to say a few words. Commissioner LaChapelle joined DCR last July. And before coming to DCR, she was the mayor of East Hampton for 7 years, so she partnered with advocacy groups and the state to preserve natural resources, create parklands, and strengthen infrastructure and community resiliency. The work that DCR does, protecting and promoting our recreational spaces and public lands, has always been deeply important to her. And as commissioner, she's focused on building healthy communities across Massachusetts by ensuring all of our residents have access to and feel welcome in our open spaces. Passing it back to you.
Thank you, Monica. I'm going to make my comments really brief so we can get to the work of the day. Thank you to Representative Decker, Representative Connolly, Undersecretary, DCR team, MAPC team, but most in all, the task force members who have put hours into this, and it's January and the goal posed is down there in June. So thank you. I am really excited and like the timing of this opportunity in task force. I'm from Western Massachusetts. A lot of folks think after Worcester, that's the start of Massachusetts. Likewise, everything after Newton to us in Western Mass is all just one big metro Boston area. So I'm looking forward to getting to know the area and all of you. You know, the hope is, and I've already heard from some of you and looked at past meetings, is that DCR comes out of this process and task force with a set of clear recommendations and guidelines of how we do engage more holistically, how we understand who is not at the table, and how to bring everyone to the table with equal voice. And that we're working with all of you for the rest of the task force, and I am personally committed to that. So all of our time is well spent, and the product and recommendations of this group really influence the work that DCR and the EEA has undertaken, realizing the grave deficits in past outreach. And that the work, starts and finishes at no given time. It's work that should have been done, and it is work that will continue to need to be done, and DCR and EA are committed to doing this work with your guidance going forward, whether it's capital improvements or entertainment, recreation, conservation, we want snow removal on top of mind today. We want to have this roadmap as clear as possible, so we don't fall back into what was, and we create together what can be. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am transitioning over to the undersecretary, and we're going to do visioning activity and the reflections and work of the task force members.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So as you all know, the Commissioner and I had one-on-one conversations with all of you. Like I said before, we heard a lot of concerns, either the lack of sort of common understanding of why we're here, but also just concerns about, how the process has gone. So we do have an exercise, a visioning exercise, which I hope will sort of bring us together. And have a common sort of reflection on where we've been, but also where we're going, right? The idea is not to sort of rehash over and over, but it is important to acknowledge what happened, but to also move forward on next steps and what do people envision as the work of the task force. So I'm actually going to hand it over to our colleagues at MAPC to help us with the visioning. There's a few questions that they're going to sort of walk us through, and just encouraging folks to be transparent and honest and sort of, put it on the stickers so that we can move forward.
Sounds good. Thank you, Undersecretary. I'm going to stand up just because I'm a little short too, and I need extra height to project my voice. So we have 4 questions to go through together. For folks in the room, we have Post-it notes and pens on the table. Please, task force member, grab one. For folks online, as we're going through the questions, please directly message Sasha, who the name is Tech Support Sasha Parodi, your comment. So maybe for the time, we could do up to 2 comments per questions per person.
And just, 1 question per sticky, right?
Yes, 1 question, 1 comment per sticky note. So as you can see in the room, there are 4 questions on the wall here. As you're writing down and when you finish, let me know. I will come by and collect the Post-it notes, and Sasha will collect all the comments coming into her online. So we'll go 1 question at a time. The first question, let's just focus on the first question, which is, what is something that is working as part of the process of this task force? Again, question is, what is something that is working as part of the process of the task force?
For the task force members on the online, please, if you're able to use the chat feature to capture your comments, then we will transfer them here in person.
And the idea is to send it directly?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can send it directly to Sasha, to me. I'm listed as tech support. If you search my name under the messages, you should be able to send me a direct message.
Thank you.
MAPC is a wash and sticky notes. Let me know. I'm happy to collect and put it on the.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe 1 more minute.
Task force members online, just one final reminder to message me in the chat. Get your comments included.
Thank you, Finance. Hi.
All right, we're gonna move on to the second question, and then we'll come back and revisit all of the answers together. So the second question is, beyond the constraints of this task force, what is something that is not working? Something that you think the project team should stop doing? Again, beyond the constraints of this task force, what is something that is not working? Something you think we as the project team should stop doing? Or I guess from the perspective, the task force should stop doing.
Oh.
This is Q1. You guys want to write down in the chat? Yes.
So the channel.
Oh. Yeah, okay. Never mind that.
Yeah.
Just another reminder for folks on Zoom, for task force members on Zoom to message me directly so that I can add your comment to a sticky note to the posters.
Who's on this? I brought my two. I just.
Okay, maybe 1 more minute for question 2, and then we'll move on.
Looking in 5 miles of snow.
I was throwing over my head. Yeah, I don't even know. I can't even imagine what. Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
All right, we're almost, we're halfway there. I will not not break down the songs, don't worry. Question number 3. What is something new that the task force can incorporate as part of this process moving forward? Something new that we are not doing but should be considering. Again, what is something new that the task force can incorporate as part of this process moving forward? Something new that we are not doing but should be considering. Question 3.
You.
Is this for 2 or 3?
Just walking through the snow, sled.
Yeah.
Monday, but our, we're at home daycare, and so I texted. Monday, Tuesday, looking, she's like, well, schools are closed and I'm gonna open. That's awesome. Yeah.
It was one of our, so we did have that,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Our daycare provider was
Parents can
And then.
Oh, sorry, you said redevelopment. No, we don't.
That's why you get to warm up, right?
Clearly not.
1 more minute for questions, please, and then we'll
They
home
just had a
stretch.
change in director recently, a new director recently.
Reminder to task force members online, to please message me your comments for question 3 so I can add them.
Is that what we also? Oh, yeah. This is what I was sitting down. That's what you want. All right. Question 4, last one. What are 1 or 2 priorities, either communication, public engagement, or transparency that you would like to see form as part of the recommendations? Question 4. What are 1 or 2 priorities related to communication, public engagement, or transparency that you would like to see as part of the recommendations? This is for children. Yes.
Yeah, what about this? What about that?
We're talking that, so. We'll talk that, so. From secretary.
Yeah, I saw it, but I didn't put much thought into it.
Observation is key.
Yes.
Happened of emergency or observation. It's okay.
Sorry, put one up.
Yep, it's after work. Yeah, application, sorry, it's gotta observe.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
I thought everybody from the staff thought it was weird, someone knew we were all
Yeah.
remote, and I was wrapped.
Yeah.
I can have the bathroom this one. Yeah, I can't do this.
Trying to create a little more.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. And it's just.
All right, we'll wrap up in 1 minute, and then we can go over some of the themes.
I knew what I needed. Like me hearing about them. To, you know, just consider there are other things, but they want things that I'm gonna. No, yep.
Yeah.
Nothing in there is
Alerting.
I can say right now, I'm hearing around the table
Yeah.
that folks are feeling like they never have time to answer these questions in real time. Obviously, open meeting makes it hard to have that discussion back and forth, but we should think about how we prioritize some of the things that people definitely around this table want to talk about, and we can, people can reply all that, as long as they always reply.
We're talking about
I'm not saying you use it.
All of them are very happy.
Except last
So,
time.
Overall,
redress.
this is where we want to spend our time.
And the rest of the night, he just
We have
solves
an
it.
agenda. I think we really want to just make sure that people
Really?
have the
My
opportunity.
job is to be.
Hi, Jonathan. I'll be in today.
I am finally here. It was 3 hours almost to get
You're
here.
gonna hear, where do you live?
Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was every
I mean,
time.
if it makes you feel any better, I live in Medford and it was an hour and a half.
Oh.
I was like, I can see downtown from my house.
Yeah.
Not like Sarah Palin in Russia, like I can really see downtown from my house.
I try. It's like, you know, giving up myself enough time, wanted to like mingle you guys and talk before we started.
And then I also.
Same thing.
And everything was like, oh, this work happening, there's some concern, and then you pass by, there was nothing on the road, it was just.
But no Jackie.
Yeah, I almost, I mean, faced a recall when I was there, because I had those whole parties. And I was like, are you kidding me? We don't have enough housing, and you want me to build a lot. I was like, that's just not gonna happen. Like, put your dog on a leash and walk it. It's an animal. Like,
All right. I think we can wrap up and just I would like to go over just some of the key highlights I'm seeing. But before I do that, I want to say how grateful I am for your input here, both online and in person. I know it's hard to throw 4 really big questions at you in just a few minutes, but really grateful for your initial input. I think we can talk
the task force can discuss further in terms of, you know, how you can continue to share this information, continue to provide input to these 4 questions beyond this meeting after. So first question, something that is working as part of the process of this task force, what I'm seeing a lot is in-person meetings. Actually, this is kind of carrying throughout the 4 questions. So yeah, in person, face to face, break bread together seems to be working. Broad visibility to the need to bring underrepresented voice to the discussion. Acknowledgement of that the need for better facilitation, clarifications, and how to empower task force members. Everyone is engaged and really cares about the area, process, and issues and the charge of this task force. Respectful facilitation and dialogue. It's clear that resources are being allocated for translation and facilitation to the valuable time of individual residents. So this is, you know, to build into the successful process, hopefully. A lot of people's voice are engaged. So that's what we're hearing initially for question 1 here. Question 2, beyond constraints of this task force, what is not working? Let's see. Sorry. As much as possible, try to focus meeting times on content and discussion. Unclear the pathway to accomplish task force goals. Lack of discussion of recommendations. Continue to defer of discussion in meetings. So hopefully, the second part of this meeting, we are going to really detail out what's happening next over the next 6 months. Need more flexibility with discussions outside of task force and to come up with ideas before coming into the meeting. So that's definitely some discussion and need to kind of make that happen there. Strongly encouraging participation or suggest an alternate rep. So making sure that the task force members are represented. Again, I think that's sort of reflecting also having all the voices included and be part of the discussion, the conversation. All right, something new that task force can incorporate as part of this process, small discussion breakout groups on specific topics. This is a few times that are showing up on here. Moving us along when discussion goes beyond scope. We'll definitely keep that in mind. More in-person meetings for better conversation and engagement. Involving faith leaders, public housing tenants, social service providers, etc., to set up tables in public spaces and do door to door. So something we'll keep in mind for the next engagement activities coming up as well. And then last question, what are some of 1 or 2 priorities related to communications, public engagement, or transparency that you would like to see as part of the recommendation? So menus of communications, flyers, telephone, email, good points of contact, building a network to support DCR and provide accountability, working with municipalities to bring DCR to community group leaders to discuss and get feedback at phase 0 of planning. So from the get-go, pay residents to act as fellow ambassadors to bring information and engage their neighbors. And substantive engagement of non-English speaking residents and community. Again, speak to that inclusive voices into the conversation. So again, this is just a start. I know in a quick few minutes we asked for this initial feedback. So thank you for that. I'll turn it back to the Undersecretary.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to sort of acknowledge, and I don't know, Commissioner, if you have thoughts, but it's clear that, you know, there's been challenges in the process and discussion, but there's also a lot of things that are working. So just also want to focus on the things that are working that we want to move forward to implement, as well as what's new. So the idea of what's new, the third question, is things that we're not doing yet, but that we want to incorporate. And so those are some ideas of ways in which we can, as I think the representative said, course correct. So there are things that have been working and ways that we can course correct. And then for the things that are sort of out of scope, which I don't think a lot of it was, that, you know, DCR is, and so are we, taking note and incorporate it beyond this task force. I don't know, Commissioner, if there's anything that you wanted to add.
I mean, actually, I was going to question for around just the ideas of that, you know, the questions are all focused on the task force and what the work has been done, but, you know, just writing notes down about what should be a part of outreach efforts by DCR going forward. And Monica is taking that on across the agency, but already there's been, you know, I've heard individually from folks, but also at this meeting, there's stuff that we can start incorporating now. So I appreciate that, but yeah, the question for you was, I don't know who put that together, but it was really helpful, all the feedback, but 3 really kind of is giving me there's a window in and is kind of shining right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we're sort of back to MAPC for the next exercise. And just want to make sure folks had a chance, right, to share from online. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, great, perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Folks had a chance to share from online, and then we've also dropped almost fully verbatim typed summaries of the post-it notes, so you can review it in the chat, and the chat will be saved, so it'll be part of the meeting minutes. And we'll make sure that all of the post-its are accurate. So I think we are going to move into discussion of the feedback that we have heard so far. And just to backtrack a little bit, good morning, everyone. My name is Sasha Brody. I work on the community engagement team here at MAPC. You see many familiar faces, but also a few new faces. So just wanted to introduce myself. So something that we're seeing a lot in the post-its is the lack of substantial discussion. I know it's been a particular point of frustration that we have not been able to discuss what we've heard so far. And despite the many hurdles that we had in the fall in coordination, we did get a lot of feedback from people. And so we want to make sure that we are processing some of that feedback today as a group. So just to recap, remind ourselves, I know it's been a little bit of time, we had the holidays. What we did in the fall was we, in addition to the 2 public hearings that we had, which were mandated as part of the task force legislation, we released a survey to supplement the public hearings. We also conducted 1 focus group, and to build up to that engagement, we conducted 2 door knocking efforts, and we also had one-on-one conversations with identified organizations and key points within the Cambridge community who task force members had identified would be important to connect with. So just want to remind us kind of where this feedback is coming from. And these are some of the top themes that came up across all of the feedback that we heard. We asked the same questions in every point of engagement that we did. So the discussion questions that we had at the public hearing were the same questions that we had in the survey, et cetera. And the things that we heard as top themes were a desire for more regular updates from DCR on projects and improvement process. A lot of people spoke to feeling like they don't know what's happening in their own community. They don't know what changes have been made, what the timeline for those changes are, what they can be expecting moving forward. And so having some more regular, consistent communication from DCR in accessible channels that community members actually use. We heard a lot of conversation about the closures and really desire for DCR to understand the impact of closures on the surrounding neighborhoods, and thinking about, again, how that communication and coordination is happening to address that impact. As we've spoken to a lot today already, or has been spoken to, there's been expressed a big need to include impacted communities directly in engagement with DCR. And we also just want to acknowledge that there was a lot that came up around infrastructure improvements and safety, need for safer speed limits, desire for safer crosswalks and better stoplight coordination, need for pathway infrastructure changes and maintenance. And we're pulling this in here because this is also tied to communication. How is DCR communicating about these infrastructure improvements? How are they making sure that they're also getting input from community members about what their daily experience is in using Memorial Drive? So we just wanted to acknowledge that in this forum, people did use this opportunity to share about their daily experience. And it is important to document that in the pursuit of continued communication and engagement. So that was a big overview. That was obviously very summarized themes from the engagement. We also sent task force members the raw data from the survey, the summary from the public hearing notes, as well as a few charts that kind of showed some of that data compiled, since we know we had received some requests for visuals. So we wanted you to have the raw data so you could review it yourselves, but also have some examples of how we could visualize some of that data. So hopefully you had a chance to review that. I can pull it up if it's helpful for reference. But the questions we want to dive into now is, what themes, and we'll start with the first question, what themes stood out to you about the feedback that people shared? So we just spoke to some of the themes we heard, but we want to hear from task force members. What stood out to you in that engagement and in that feedback that you heard? What did you hear? Yes, Lawrence.
Yes. For all the great work, okay, and I'm not gonna preface anything on the past, other than that the impacted neighbors still have not been engaged with any of this 205 activity, whether it be the survey, go knocking, presence in audiences. They're not there because the reach has not gotten to them. Now, whether it be those who feel dejected because for eons, DCR, MCD, whatever, just didn't give a hoot, and they feel like they have enough conquering things in their life to deal with, and why take on more? While I express to the others, be the H with that, and go ahead and put your shovel to the ground and just try to do what you can. That's what I'm representing. So all I can say about the information, as vast as it is, it stands on the shoulders of those partnerships of which you have long time been associated with. Feel comfortable, but that's what's been absent for decades. So myself, not taking away any of the work presented, but I cannot give any relationship of that data because it speaks nothing of those who I know, and we are impacted and we are trapped. And each day that passes by with all the work that DCR and MAPC is doing further traps us in. So can I look through those eyes of those people and say, why bother? Which I encourage them to bother. And the feeling of that is rapidly growing. So I think that's what this committee for me is standing for, because we're a pilot to make observation of who is present, but more important, who is not present. And that's where it becomes DCR and MAPC to be actively in these areas. And if you don't know what the areas I'm talking about, please meet me and I'll walk you through them. They are vast and many, because Riverside itself goes from Memorial Drive, Massachusetts Avenue, Mount Auburn, and captured by River Street, which I see in your own schematics. You don't have those dimensions. And that's why your work, whatever you're doing, and I'm not questioning it, does not envelop those people. So I think if we all work from the same clipboard, we will have a much more active and enveloped conversation to do whatever, including making those people ambassadors for those who are so discouraged that they don't believe or don't want to have anything to do with any of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. To make sure that we have balanced participation from task force members who are in the room and online, I just want to alternate between in-person comments and remote comments. So just wondering if any task force members online would like to share, and you can unmute if you would like to jump in. Again, we're talking about that first question. What stood out to you about the feedback that you reviewed? I just want to give 1 minute and then I'll go to you.
I'll put my hand up.
Great. Okay. Not seeing any unmuting from, Steve?
Yes, hi. What struck me about a lot of the feedback was how many people felt a certain amount of insecurity. And what most people were talking about was physical access and comfort in the area rather than decision-making access or having their voice heard. Those were the kinds of conversations, and in a sense I'm echoing Lawrence here, people understood to speak about physical things in front of their face. People didn't know or feel comfortable in speaking about sort of the processes behind those physical realities. And that's what struck me about the feedback. And we're going to have to think more clearly, and I think it's hard. How do you get feedback about the process of giving feedback? How do you really get into people's heads about the decision-making process, which is invisible often and somewhat abstract? So I think going forward, we have to think carefully about that kind of tension.
Thank you, Steve. We'll go to Denise.
Yeah, and thank you, Steve, because both you and Lawrence hit on what I was thinking of and what Marjorie said. I know we're talking about the survey and how do you feel about your use and interaction to the folks that we did reach of Memorial Drive, but we are missing what we're to do. We're missing the point of talking about, we are now to talk about process, to build the recommendations, to build a guide or playbook for engagement. And possibly, Steve, you tapped into it. People are not aware of the process. What is the process to engage with DCR or the city or be ambassadors? I like the term that you use, because we're task force members, but you have people who may not have formal community groups, but they are a voice in the community. They do show up, whether it's for their fellow neighbor or for their community at City Hall, but they're not part of a formal group. And those are the folks that I think need to be tapped into, because then they can be ambassadors to then talk to what we're trying to get to is the process. So back to the themes, it's great we did hear, and there's recurring themes about the physicality part of using the river or having access. But it's now, how do we shift the conversation from what we gathered to now, how do we get information about what we want to do for the recommendations, for the input for the recommendations?
Thank you, Denise. And we agree that that is an important part of today's conversation, and that will be where we move this conversation. So starting from reflecting on what we heard, but then moving into thinking about how are we moving forward, given what we have seen so far and what needs to change. Laura, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, but if you do online first.
But yeah, just gonna pause to see if anybody online wants to jump in. Any task force members online want to jump in. Laura.
Thanks. I guess just reflecting both on the feedback and the comments we've had today, and also from Representative Decker. I know just thinking about like how do you then scale this across the Commonwealth, being what I think is most exciting about working through some of the really hard challenges and the very nonlinear path that we're out there doing. And I'll say I also come from the perspective of both
the Charles River Conservancy, but also being a part of the DCR Stewardship Council. So with a particular interest in stakeholders, right? Like how do we make that connection and that communication more transparent? And so I just here, I think, while the recommendations are very much focused on DCR, I'm really interested in how do we create that network. So you're both talking to the organizations who have better access to the individuals who can make people feel more comfortable. And so, and so much of what people's experience of the river, like they don't care, nor should they care if it's state property or city property, right? Like they just know it's a park or they want to go somewhere and feel welcome there. But so much of the kind of behind the scenes and the operationalizing of that is coordinating between municipal and state. And so I hope that while we are thinking about these recommendations, I know we are in the context of DCR, that we're also thinking about what has to be true of other folks. And I put the Conservancy out there as like, what do we need to do better, right? How can we be a better link? What needs to happen with the city in order to really be able to create that network that's going to be able to support better communication and the resources that DCR is going to need to do that. So my reflections.
Any other comments on this first question of what stood out to folks?
One thing that struck me when at the public meeting and hearing people talk, even people when they feel like they have been engaged on DCR projects in the past, or had an opportunity to participate in a vision exercise or early on in the project, I heard from multiple people there was that carry through throughout the project. There wasn't that follow up. They would give feedback or give advice, and then wouldn't hear anything about it, and then the project. So I know there's a lot of discussion about engagement. We need to reach out, and of course we have to reach out to people and engage them first before we can do a follow up. But I don't want that piece to be lost as well. It's not just about the start, it's about maintaining that engagement throughout a project, after a project, getting feedback. How did this whole process go? All of that.
I just asked, so it's like you have the suggestion box out. Nobody checks the suggestion box. Or even looks at it to address. I think DCR and other organizations are in a hard seat because you have, and your mic is hot.
Denise is just gonna finish her comment and then we can go to
Black
you.
bag in next
You
to
may want to mute him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What was I going to say? Oh, so it's you have a lot of subject matter experts who can give really good advice, but maybe that advice or that suggestion is not valid for whatever activity or what's being executed. But if you don't let people know, then they think it's a suggestion box and you just put it in and that's it. So I like that too, to just follow up and say, no, it was a great suggestion, but we can't do this because of. And then people are heard and you're told why, and they still may not like the answer, but you're giving them the answers.
I just want to see if folks online before we jump to. Okay, any task force members online who want to jump in?
Thanks. One thing that I saw here and stood out to me in the small group discussion I was part of was just like the quality of the discussion and kind of like getting into the nuanced details about things like stoplight timing, safer, like there was a lot that seemed like it might almost be low-hanging fruit that we could pursue in the recommendations, but I guess feeding into the second question here, I guess I'm a little still confused about like, is that the fodder for this task force, or is it about purely the process? So it's almost like the content of that discussion, it's more just about who's engaged in what the process is.
Yeah, so the recommendations, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, no, that's okay. I mean, I think that's the balance, right? Like the idea is that it is about the process, but we also don't want to ignore what the process or use, which we won't ignore, but how does that affect the outcome? You know, so when I think about environmental justice, I think about equitable distribution of benefits and burdens and meaningful engagement. But those two have to be combined or linked in some ways. So can the report include some substance of the issue, the matters that we're discussing? I think so, but the majority or the bulk of it, I think should focus on what the statute tells us to do without ignoring, you know, its process and its substance. If I'm being clear, I hope I'm being articulate.
I think the one other thing I'll just say, like as the consultants in this project, is that, you know, we're tasked with trying to like pull all this stuff together and kind of get our arms around the recommendations that are elevated from the group. But, you know, I'm sure you've all seen legislative reports. They'll often have this section that was like, this is where we're kind of meeting the scope of the mandate. But here are some things that were elevated in these conversations that like the stakeholders who can like move it forward should be pursuing. And I do think some of these like infrastructure investments are in that space. But, you know, like Sasha said when she was kind of running through the feedback, like a lot of the comments about the infrastructure investments are actually also related to communication and engagement when you like pull it back. And so I actually think that's like an important piece for as we're moving forward to be thinking about that communication and engagement and outreach and impacted communities piece as it relates to some of the like hard infrastructure questions that are also coming up from the public. Because I think you're right. People deal with the tangible.
Or, you know, just to chime in on everything that's being said, membership should be able to recognize that's being developed in the report. Yep. So moving forward, because I understand contractors have many hats, that the commissioner has many hats, and undersecretary many hats. But if you all in your agencies do something, it should not be for membership to have the reality of it at another meeting. And then it leaves us with concrete to say to each other while we're here. So just to say that moving forward, anything and everything. I know June's coming fast. Yeah. But I don't want to step up because this process fails to recognize. So anything and everything, if it's going to change, you have immediate contact for all of us. You can only ask, are we available, because circumstances have, and if it has to be Zoom, so be it. But at least then we are all aware, and we don't come to the table like, when and who said, and where did this information come from? So that doesn't have that slant that, because we're in neighborhoods. And the question is going to be, well, what the H are you doing there? And I'm certainly not going to take egg on my face, because if you don't follow through, that's exactly what I want to communicate. It's not here. Did they do it blindly? The answer is absolutely positive yes. So you can imagine what strength any report coming out will have. So to avoid that, I do suggest moving forward, anything that goes on, including an alteration for the survey, or when reports come in that needs to be done.
Can I just ask though? Yep. Because what you're saying, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you are feeling like they're gonna take the information and change it.
They can't change anything until it's all made aware here. Yeah. If they notice something of that degree, then it should first be spoken with membership. Yeah. And then if there's going to be initiation to do, alter, whatever, then it should be done there. Not at a future meeting, all of a sudden, hey, we've done this.
Yes. I don't know, does anybody have their hand up?
I just wanna, before we transition, make sure that your question was answered around what the recommendations should include. Do you feel clear on that? Okay. I also think that we're very organically moving into the second question. How can this feedback inform task force recommendations? So just want to bring that on the table, and to respond to your point, Lawrence, I think as we move through this activity and the activity we'll do after the break, the goal is to talk through what happens over these next six months and what decisions this group needs to take in order for us to be able to do the things that we've set out to do. So the goal is that no decisions are happening without the consent of this group, because ultimately it is you all who are putting these recommendations together. And so, to these questions of what should or shouldn't be included in the recommendations, we want to hear from you about how that's included. I think Lizzie posed one idea of, having a section at the end of the report or separately of the report of, here's all the communications feedback that we heard, but here's infrastructure feedback that should also be acknowledged. But there are many ways that conversation can happen. There's many ways that report can look. So Denise, I will pass it to you, and then as we continue through this conversation, maybe we can start bringing some comments of how do we inform the recommendations. What should we start putting into the recommendations?
I think, well, I just wanted to tie what Kyle said and what you were saying, Lauren, just to confirm, which I'm glad we did out loud. But just to tie what Undersecretary Power and what Lizzie said was that I see the recommendations, you have your top level, whatever we come up with or to address the process, right? That it also points to, we're saying to address the process because here's your real life example, right? It's simple, it's not, we're not. We don't,
within the recommendations.
yeah,
to
however
address
we build it in, or you point to, when people write papers, whatever you point to, here's real life, we had the sidewalk, even though sidewalk is separate. It was not necessarily, some of the findings weren't necessarily immediately tied to what we're talking about, but they are related, they are important, and they are factual, right? So that's part of bringing the recommendations to show real life examples.
Just make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, Denise. So including in the report, kind of noting what the process for engagement was for this task force, and what the different activities were and where that could have been improved, along with the feedback that came from those activities.
I don't know how reports are written for legislation. So first of all, so I don't know if it's an executive summary first and then the recommendations, but all I'm saying is whatever the recommendations are, we have information, and whatever information we gather going forward to point to real world examples.
I think it's totally reasonable to, within each recommendation, to include one or two examples.
Some of the things we heard.
Within the report.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's all.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was hearing you correctly.
And there's a lot of flexibility on how the report looks and feels.
Any other ideas on how the feedback we've heard so far could inform the recommendations? Okay.
I'm sorry, just keeping us honest with time.
Yes, we're good on time so far, but appreciate the reminder. So we'll move into the third question, which is, as we move into the next six months, we will be doing another round of public hearings, as part of the engagement process for this half of the year that we're spending together. And we heard already some feedback from you all about how things could be improved, but we would like to discuss that further. So the question is, how can the next round of public hearings be improved, as we're building out these recommendations? Yes.
Moving forward with the public meeting, anything in the public must be uniform. Don't matter what's the audience you have, the location, whatever. If they cannot be uniform, then the activity is not going to build the information that it starts off with the original meeting. Again, nothing to reflect in the past, but there was a mock that. So let's give a real true face of the Charles River Task Force. And no matter what we do when we set up identical for the pure purpose of having that part be in uniform so that each of any other neighbors, they can speak of that in that framework, much rather than saying it in wide. Was it redacted to be something else, and what was it meant to represent? Which would throw me as a membership person to say, well, I wasn't sure of the conversation by the leadership that was it, because I probably may not have made that beat, but that would definitely signify that we're all working on the same page. Other than that, I forgot to make mention of it. Moving forward, the web portal, if it could be changed to be an Excel with everything there, the date of the meeting, the source of the minutes, the access to the recorded session, all on one page, because I have reached out to people and had to more or less walk them through to go back to the websites and tag the interest that was their way of finding out what's going on. We need to have this again in a fact manner of point and click, no matter who you are, to see what it is. I mean, we have enough obstacles in the digital world, and we certainly don't have to have on-hand menu to send to people who want to be engaged or at least have interest and get discouraged and say, look, you're on your own. Good luck and whatever you come out. So if you can at all, have a look at that website. I've done it, and I'm certain I've sent the notification to Monica when I can't find something, and then it becomes of interest. But I just want to clear that up.
I have, I have a suggestion where if maybe whatever we're going to be asking from the public, that we give enough information out there in advance. You know, if we can coordinate with the city, they've done a little bit better with putting information on the website, with engagement, and just really understanding if it's smaller meetings, that way you can hit more pockets versus one big one. But I think it would be nice too if task force members were actually present too from whatever communities, you know, so that they're aware and they can see there are actually people here from your neighborhood or whatever affiliate organization you're with, that they're here to also be supportive of what's being said. But do we know how, I know we're saying how we can improve them, but what are we improving to? What are we going to be saying to them?
Yeah, so I think that moves us pretty well into talking through the plan for the next 6 months. We had planned to take a break, so I'm wondering if now feels like a good time for folks to take a quick bio break, maybe about 10 minutes, and then we'll reconvene to talk about the plan and answer the question that you're posing, Denise, and dive into those concrete elements a little bit more.
Whatever y'all want to do. I'm good with punching through. So
yeah, me too.
Let's punch through.
Rock and roll.
Let's do it. All right. Great.
You're like, wait,
maybe you should check online.
Here people have been able to walk up.
But folks online, are you good with continuing through without a break?
I guess I would suggest just to give us 5 minutes, 5 minutes to ensure that people can go to the bio and not miss the opportunity of the conversation.
Yeah, let's just take 5 minutes. So we'll come back at 11:28, okay? I learned so many things.
Bio break?
A bio break.
Legit.
Yeah.
That's because you're in person.
Not used to being in a room with people.
Always say you gotta go, right?
Yeah,
You know,
I'm there.
personal
Call it for what it is.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
I don't
In
even-
person
I don't even
is
get into the particular.
live is different.
Yes, yes. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm old. You always say you gotta go.
I don't know, maybe I'm older than I am, because that's how I was.
Yeah. Check on, hello, are you okay at home? Okay.
Well, at home they just
They
take
can
it,
get
they
just
don't
go.
announce it.
Yeah, they just, you know, turn your screen off, do
Right.
your thing.
Do your thing.
Oh, give us.
No screen, volume up. I can hear you.
I know, putting in my, that you're, like, everybody has different,
Different,
quality, and it's really loud, and then it's really not. Yeah. No matter where it is.
Oh.
It's kind of amazing. Remote. They Yeah. Do you need to review? Do you need to switch it to writing? I'm gonna do, yeah. I know.
That was at one point, I was like, wait a minute, I can't do my rules because it's not changing, it's not changing.
And when they put us in, we had to a significant. So you want to never got back to us. You know, so with that, we want to say to you, you can't sit at a table.
Your Zoom folks are back.
Without saying something.
Okay.
You feel that it's gonna be, we're not saying we're gonna get 100%. But we need to say, this is what you do.
Are you gonna say that? Okay.
Okay, hey everybody, we're gonna just restart. One of the quick announcements that I wanna make and just put it out here, you know, this is great, having this hybrid component and in person and online opportunity. So we were going to just hear from you real quick, having the opportunity to rotate and where we can host these particular meetings at DCR or at the EA office, and then making sure that we give you enough time to know in advance that this is happening. How do we feel about that? Is that something that you welcome?
Yes.
Everybody here in person?
Are folks okay alternating, sort of, we could go to DCR next, and then after that at EEA? Yeah, right. Cambridge also.
We don't have our office, so I'm sure we could find a place.
There's the boundary,
Make
yes,
more sense.
the
It's there.
boundary.
At the high school.
Yeah, the multicultural center.
The library, the high
Yeah.
school,
The
both have
library,
beautiful
the
spaces.
At the Sullivan Chamber.
Yeah,
It's
up
vacant,
in City Hall.
Yep.
All right, Sasha, we make you nervous over there?
Just a little gravity.
Alright, so having meetings, I just, there's a strong, or to have the meetings in the neighborhood or area that we're working with. Does that make more sense?
Anything, any
Yeah.
We can move it around.
Yeah, let's alternate, no?
Yeah. let's
Okay,
move it
I just,
around.
when you
Task
said
force
uniform in the
meetings
past,
versus hearings. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
So we're-
that's what,
We're saying task force meetings, right, Jonathan?
Yes.
Is that-
That's for meeting.
In person,
Yeah.
rotated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
we
then
can
for
work on it.
hearings,
Yeah.
we're saying in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood.
understood,
Yeah.
right, thank you
Yeah.
for the clarification, thank you.
All right, so the next piece is I will walk through this proposed updated project timeline, which focused between January, more like February, into June. And so again, to just walk through, so what we have been learning and hearing and thinking about this going forward, how to move this forward to Lawrence Horn. June is just around the corner, literally, after the snowbank. So we wanted to break down month by month to show sort of like this is the activities, the things that need to happen or should happen so that we can reach the June successfully. And so today we would like to present this. What you see here is the overall timeline, and then I will also walk through the month by month, and after that, we'll make, we would love to hear feedback and anything we're missing, or any additional suggestions you have from the task force as well. So we break it down here, as you see the timeline from January to June, into two sort of streams, sort of like the two main streams that we're seeing to help organize our work and engagement activities. One is putting a report together, that's the charge. By June 30th, a final report of recommendations by the task force. And to inform the report, we need to do engagement. So these are the different engagement milestone activities that we need to get to help inform what the task force will be recommending. So in January, review input from fall, which we just did, discuss engagement timeline, what we're doing now. Going into February, the task force will start talking about draft recommendations. Also need to discuss the dates for spring engagement. You'll see here some hosting focus groups that's in parentheses and with an asterisk. So that's something that we, the task force together will discuss to move forward with some decision there as well. In March, that's full on editing, making the draft recommendations ready for public review period. with that, there will be engagement, spring engagement, outreach activities happening too. Again, we'll be informed by task force and decision in terms of how you would like us to do these engagement. April is basically the time that we proposed would be for releasing the draft recommendation for public input. So it'll be out there. This is when we will also launch the public the hearings. Again, we will host two, one virtual and one in person, with the location to be determined by the task force members as well. Along with that, again, we will also have an online survey for public feedback for folks who may not be able to attend the public hearings virtually or in person for any reason, and or if they need additional platform to provide input. Comes May, we gather all the input we receive in April, or up to April, update this draft recommendations to share with the task force for decision making, for thinking through what's still missing, what needs to be improved, what needs to be finalized, reviewing input, and then June, we have hopefully a final report, and then the task force will make the decision whether to they can move forward and submit this final report. Okay, so just kind of, I will walk through this fast quickly again, but you have, for folks in the room, you have a copy of the presentation as well. So again, just here are the milestones for February. We need to design the outreach. What are we doing for outreach engagement for the public hearings that will happen in April? Initial draft of recommendations based on today's discussion. So I think the project team will come back, put together some outline draft, basically transforming, bringing everything that we're hearing today into something that is digestible so that the task force can review and respond to, and have discussion among yourself. We also would like to, after today, we'll be making the decision whether to move forward with hosting public focus groups at the public housing, the Cambridge Housing Authority. And so with that, if that is happening in February, we also need to design, what would you like us, how would you like us to facilitate these focus groups? So again, just to show you sort of like the to-do list for the task force member for February. And then in March, again, conduct outreach for April public hearing. So this is when really we're gonna start promoting. So how are we gonna promote it? Where we're gonna promote it? Who are we gonna partner with to promote? And make sure folks are aware of the public hearings come April. Draft agenda for public hearings, again, so making the content for the public hearings. How are we conveying? What are we sharing out as information? And what kind of feedback we want to get from the public on the draft recommendations. And then making draft recommendation edits based on the feedback from the task force in February. Again, hosting public housing focus groups may or may not happen there, depending on your vote today. In April, launch a survey, host the public hearings. May, following the 30-day public comment period, that's where we kind of pull all the information, the edits, the reviews together for your review and input, and finalize that draft recommendations, so that in June, we will have at the last task force meeting in June, that will be the opportunity for final discussion of the task force report of recommendations and a vote to submit the final report. I understand, so, this is what sort of in the project team, sort of what needs to happen to kind of help move things along between now and June. But now is the time we would like to open up to the task force members for your reaction, feedback. What do you think? What is missing?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, Lawrence.
What I suggested to move forward with is that the opening of these public meetings absolutely set down 205 as is. No of this
Could you say that? I'm sorry, can you just say that again? I just didn't hear
the
you.
opening of the public meetings
Mhm.
should emphasize on 205, which this is,
Yes.
and presented them a much more claritative explanation than what's being offered now, which is just a highlighting of the environmental status. That's it. You don't get into what happened, and I'm not saying we're not trying to repair 40 years, but it is the 40 what we stand on. And a lot of people sit in that audience, and I'm gonna keep saying this until it's heard, and have dejected, because there's that membership that's been rejected over that time. So if they get them in the room, you make no recognition of that, then hey, they've already been supplanted. Let alone the conversation that they might have, which I'm encouraging you to catalog it and bring it back to us. And if it goes on the subsections of the report, so be it. But we're trying to make this as inclusive as possible, as engaged with as many. So there are a whole lot of challenges out there. So I'm looking from it from a wider view that I'm trying to get as many and I'm trying to exclude no one. Because the other partnerships and everything are existing. And, you know, as soon as somebody says they come from something that's known, that deflates the room from those who want to have something to say that haven't been involved. So I really suggest, as Representative Decker had reflected on, what you've been looking at, looks all the same, then you're in that group, you need to alter what you're doing. Because that's alone is predominant and message to be received, okay? So.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question?
Sure.
Do you mean the public hearing, the hearings that are coming up?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. I'm not trying, I'm taking that off my chalkboard and I'm only looking ahead.
Right. No, just curious about, yep, the public hearing that are coming up.
Yeah, so
Great.
that'll be of much help, both ways. If we're gonna create ambassadors, they have a stone to start from and equipment to sit to the table like everybody else.
Thank you.
Can I add, oh, go ahead.
I'm just gonna make a comment, it's not a question, and the comment is that we wouldn't be here today if everybody was at the table when decisions were made. And we wouldn't have to take the time to organize a task force group or anything of that nature, because whether it was satisfying or dissatisfying the decisions that were made, we would have all been there to hear them and walk away accepting them or rejecting them. So now we're here for that main purpose. And I think that the understanding has been wrongly received of why the task force is here. And I think that clearing that up first might help those who believe that they're coming to say something that they've already put in place or already had a discussion on. And I think Marjorie said it, sometimes you have to say it plain and clear. It's, you know, it's not the fault of the people who felt that they were not part of the conversation. And we're bringing it, and we appreciate you all here. And we appreciate your ears and your eyes on it now. But this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And in this work, we just can't have a portal that we're going to use be destructed before we even start, because we're taking in voices of things that really don't matter to the conversation that we're having. So
that's really well put. I appreciate that. And so I think just Sasha's taking notes, Lawrence, of the feedback and the suggestions that you're providing there too. And that's why I just want to take a step back to this timeline and the to-do list that we're going to do. And by we're going to be taking guidance from the task force. So like, who should be involved? Who's missing from the conversation? Who do we need to do outreach, the public, the focus group with, etc. Like things that will be happening in engagement. We will be following the task force guidance in terms of need to do here, and there, and what is the agenda even for the public hearing will look like. That will be shaped by the task force. So yes, to that point, like we will be drafting with your response, and you'll see the final, and there'll be voting. So everything will be in uniform. You know, and that's the goal that we're aiming for this next 6 months.
I don't know if somebody had anything.
Yeah, anyone, just wanna see if anyone on Zoom wants to share, task force members, online, if you have a comment or any feedback on the timeline.
All right, so I'm gonna bring it back to the logistics part of this. I have a couple of questions. We wanna do a public hearing, but we have, so I guess my thing is confusing. I just wanna clarify. Focus groups versus public hearings. What are we considering the difference and what do we want to gauge from doing that?
That's pleasure. I think it's beneficial. Thank you.
So it's what do we want? Because I think based on where we're shifting to really understanding the process, that we should be having more of the smaller focus groups to have the engagement to understand. And then maybe a public hearing that brings the information that you gather from the input from the smaller groups, from the communities that were missed as part, even though it was one direction, but now we're going back to say, okay, this is what the task force has been formed. This is what we want to go to. What do you feel about this? And if they have as ancillary stuff to say, well, you know, I still want to have, you know, I want to see this happen on the river, or I want to see that, or are y'all aware of this? That's information that still can be collected. However, we want to get from them, what do you feel about the process? How do you feel the process works? And maybe some of that feedback then comes to the general hearing. Is that what we're looking to get? Because that, it doesn't, on here, it's saying engagement, set the dates, do a spring engagement, then do the hearing. It doesn't have to be just CHA, it's those communities, but am I thinking the right way?
So I'll start something and then I'll let Sasha detailing, she's the super brain behind this too, and some follow-up with the reasoning for the CHA engagement there. But ultimately, the hearings is the public hearings are the public, you know, kind of allowing folks both to join virtually and or in person to provide input, feedback, whatnot. So what we have been suggesting is that you know, that's not enough to have just these hearings because their timing might not work for folks.
Sure.
Folks might not want to be vocal in public setting, etc. And so that's why the survey, the online survey, and the focus groups are supplemental pieces that we want to.
Okay, so we provide.
So
the groups will be your boots on the ground. You're getting the
exactly.
information
So
from
like
those who are immediately impacted, but then the public hearing is for, hey, at large, this is what we're doing.
Exactly.
You can weigh in on it as well, but this is our findings thus far.
And then that's where
it's in March and the hearing in April. Is that the goal?
Right.
Of the timeline?
I think it's also depending on the timing. So it's like could be March and April because we want to be respectful of like scheduling and sometimes we can't force everything to happen in March. Right. But I'll turn it over to Sasha.
All right. Yeah, I think what you talked about, Denise, is right. The starting small and building up to the public hearings. That is exactly what we are hoping to do. The reason the Cambridge Housing Authority focus groups are called out is because both Rep. Decker.
I know why. I'm just saying it should be just the only one.
Yeah. I'm just going to state it for everybody that Rep. Decker and folks in the public events specifically called out the public housing sites as folks were not represented at all in the engagement. And so we knew that was feedback we already had. So we put that down because we feel relatively certain that is something that will be discussed here. I think where we need more information from you all is what additional focus groups we need to have. And the thing I really want to emphasize is how long it takes to do a focus group, right? So if the focus group is happening at the end of March, we should have that date set in February because we should be giving people at least a few weeks to a month to really have that on their calendar. And so that's where we really need the input from you all now, between now and February, because otherwise we won't be able to do the focus groups in the time that we have. So we will be discussing the Cambridge Housing Authority focus groups today, just because we have heard from Cambridge Housing Authority and they're willing to work with us on those focus groups. So we can actually move forward with that if the task force decides to do that. But the other piece of information that we really need is what other groups we need to be hosting small group discussions with. So that information would be very helpful for this group to discuss.
Well, I already have spoken again with the Cambridge Community Center. Now, if they are used to a greater capacity, they have tributaries right there, their own, that they could share information with. But again, it's working with them, scheduling with them, and going through things with great detail, and including the reasonable expectation. Reasonable expectation because they have a limited staff also. And some of us in Cambridge have just richly been engaged with our own city with this new knock on the door crew that they have. So you should go up there and find out who does that. And that'd be an additional point, as particularly as they would go through the spiderweb streets that we have, and they can leave a little masking tape notice that doesn't bother property. They're very good. I'm impressed with what they've done, the manner they've done, and that little piece of document they leave. I mean, it's just a good thing. So it's convenient that it just happened, and seeing that you're gonna start reaching out to the cities that DCR already has some type of camaraderie operation, one support the other, especially if it impacts the city. And I know that this is going to impact the city no matter what. So they are both to be on both sides. So they should reach out down there, find out who it was. And I ain't got all the details, but I know that they've been out and on several occasions, the racing that's going on, the changing of the plaque that's going on, and everybody was like, wow, this is from the city, good thing to know. And it helped not interfere with their lives, or it was a great bank of information for just neighbors to know that was there.
And just, thank you, just to circle back to Denise's point about like, when we're doing focus group, when we're doing public hearings, the purpose of this also is, to Lauren's point about having uniform, it will be the same set of questions that we will be asking.
Are we developing them now?
No, February.
So.
Not right now,
So,
in this moment.
I'm sorry, let's just get it moving kind of
Yeah.
person. So, so today we're just saying this is what we'll do, because we're basically in February, right?
But I think the other piece is this question of like, who else, like, it sounds like the Cambridge Housing Authority is a top priority for focus groups.
So
What
that's my
other
question. What are we
entities?
focusing on now? Are
What
we looking
other-
for entities?
Yeah, I think
and
it's
then
like entities,
questions next?
groups, yeah, and I think your point about like other resources to use to get the word out is like really critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some conversations with the city about this, and the team has too, just.
Yeah.
So-
Pastor Battle, are you on? And Ken, Stephen, yeah, I don't know if they want to speak to. Yeah, sorry, it's my personality.
Steve has to step out
Oh.
for family matters.
I don't know, I'm, because
I think
Pastor
Ken's
Battle
gonna
is
get
there for
in there.
part of the
Is that him?
Black Pastor Alliance.
Yeah,
You know, I can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So, you know, it's interesting to attend as a member and a fly on the wall. I would just highlight two things. One, this is not fun. It is a somewhat torturous process. As somebody who has a life outside of this task force, how do normal people sign up for this is a question I have. But further, it also is there's a context issue here that is present but unspoken. And that is on the Cambridge side of this, we meet this at a time of great turmoil and contextual change in our community. Our city council has just changed zoning throughout the city in a way that seems quite self-destructive. So there's a feeling of radical change not introduced by the people, as it were. So that's an overlay to all the rest of this. So I can't really imagine how this got this complex, but I know there have been many steps here, but I just want to comment on the overall complexity of this process and program from the vantage point of John Q. Citizen. It really is a lot. And I don't have the magic wand to say how it could become fun or even interesting in the sense that you think you're going to come out with some great results that will impact the future. But it's like multiple bureaucracies learning how to talk to a community, and that hasn't been fully successful yet. In my many years in government and community, this stands out as a fraught situation. That would be my observation. I don't know that I would know how to vastly improve it, but I recall at the beginning, I tried to suggest that it would be great to have someone from the history reality, like a Charlie Sullivan of Cambridge, to come and talk about the river and this community, and maybe we would have had a more organic beginning in that way, but we're far past that step. But this is very interesting.
I would like to just see if we can actually bring it back on that particular question. If there are examples of focus groups that the task force members would like to address. So like an example would be, we really would like to do a youth focus group. And then who should be those organizations that we should take into consideration that we need to do outreach for that focus group? Is it elected officials? Who are those elected officials that members of the task force would like us to do outreach? What are some focus groups, right, that you think we should just align, that we can bring these conversations in, you know, make sure that we bring this.
Haven't already reached out to the Cambridge School Department and to the school committee and to the superintendent. I mean, those are should be the strongest three entities, and particularly with youth in the city of Cambridge. I mean, we got teen centers, we got drop-ins, we had educational advancement. But
So I see the schools, but I think, like you said, I think the youth centers would be definite. I don't know about school community.
CIP?
Yeah.
I mean, just with resources, they should know, maybe, you know, of it. I mean, I'm
I think
7-0,
if we
so.
put our heads together, we can come up with organizations that could be tapped to get.
Churches.
Yeah.
Church.
Yeah, for, you know, input that is, well, wait a minute, so who are y'all paying to give out?
Yeah.
So in that instance, we were working specifically with the residents of the Ringe communities, so not very large apartment buildings there, so residents of them. So we're working through residents associations.
I mean, I'm thinking that volunteerism is the greatest commitment, but is there a window? And maybe, well, to pass it around, do they have a temporary program to get these searching folks that, as long as they're active, to pay them for that resource to get, youth or youth organizations or those who have that, to get back to DCR or MAPC or whatever, for the purpose of this, to set up a pilot of some type. But the wording, I guess we can get further, but it's a manner, and if possible, because I believe that the greatest wealth is gonna come out is for those that volunteer. They have nothing to gain but where they live, and I think that's the number one focus. So that's how
I know that Dr. Neil, Derek Neil, rather, he said through their outreach program, so CHA's outreach, they have focus. They have outreach workers, that could possibly get focus groups together. But yeah, we think about that for a little bit. Sure, we can come up with some names.
What this Cambridge is DHS have. Same thing.
Yeah, they might have, because they're tied into the youth centers. So
they run.
Yeah.
Can I ask a process question too? You know, when we do this, it's a different engagement too, but the idea of like you provide some payment, right? Compensation to youth or someone else. Is there that option to think about it? Ever done this through like a gift card, right? Like
I think I mean, I don't see it as a barrier per se in terms of, I mean, I know it's hard as government. I used to do it so much easier in the community side. I was organizing like gift cards so I don't necessarily, I mean, I guess talk to Lizzie, but I don't see it as I don't see it as a barrier. We just have to look at the budget and see how much money we have and how many people. Is it gift cards? Is it Charlie cards? Is it something to incentivize folks to sort of participate?
Yeah, we certainly can do that, and we have it. I think the budget question is a separate question, but we can also figure out how to do that.
And everything has limitations. I'm the same. Because it goes out there and the bank don't read right. Well,
so I'm and I apologize to go back to this again, but we're getting to the who do we reach out and how do we reach out, but what are we reaching out saying? We haven't gotten to that part, and I think, am I jumping ahead again?
I mean, no, all of this, and we are taking that into, and so the detail outline that we provide, that's a discussion dedicated in each month in terms of talking about who, what, and when and where.
Yeah, because I think to me, if we're saying for process, we can reach out to the youth, but what are we saying to them? If we're saying, well, how best can neighborhoods make sure that, are you aware, Magazine Beach, people might have questions like, why is there so much construction? Why is it closed off? Or were you aware that they're actually planning and these are the designs for what Magazine Beach is all about? But you didn't know what was going on. How can we help you get better informed? Are we looking to do that? And I'm sorry, that's how I would think.
Oh, yes. So
where do you get your information?
Yeah,
right?
But
especially with youth, when I can hear that, I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Right?
Exactly. So I don't know, like Ken said, it's a big undertaking, how to make it fun, and maybe it's the way my brain works of, I need to know what I'm gonna ask you or I need to know what I'm asking so I know who to ask or who to speak to. And I think we've jumped to who should we speak to? We know who we need to speak to, but what are we asking them? What are we engaging them on? And I don't think we've uncovered that as of yet.
And Denise, thank you for that. We definitely want, one of the things is we want to make sure that we hear from you, who are those individuals, who are those groups that we should be looking at and ensuring to the timeline that we're reaching out, that we're setting up a day and where we can convene them, going back to what Sasha said in the beginning of trying to figure out a calendar day that they can come together, that we are able to provide all the documents or all the information that the task force has made available for them to download, understand, and ask questions, and us helping answer some of those questions if they have some. to gain some good input from that on how we can do better engagement and outreach on all of it. And I guess that particular question, who are those individuals that you think we should be addressing? And then the other piece on the timeline. Does this timeline
So the other
work?
thing with the timeline is how many of these engagements do we want to have? And it goes back to, again, what are we asking? Because then we can say, who do we ask and how many times, like how many, because you may not hit, we're not looking to have one, right? If we can say in February, what if you had 4? And it doesn't have to be big, but you have different pockets or communities that you're touching on.
Can I just suggest some?
No.
It sounds to me like we should touch on what is it that we're asking, because that may shape
That's what, thank you.
who
I'm
and
trying
how.
to say it.
No,
It's just
yeah.
like
No, I
I'm
think
trying
if I'm hearing you
Yeah.
correct, it's let's flip the order of instead of who, let's start with what.
Yeah.
What are we asking? And then that will sort of tell us
Yeah, I think that will
who
help
and
drive the
when.
conversation
Yeah.
we're trying to get to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe go into the question of what are we asking folks to tell us?
It sounds like some of what we might be asking them is maybe where do you get your information generally, so that there are places where DCR and others can plug in more effectively going
For the
forward.
actual engagement of DCR moving forward.
Right,
Yeah.
how to improve that, but then also maybe there's kind of like, there's the where and from a newsletter standpoint, but also I think when we're talking about public space, like where are you going? Like where are those hubs that are important to have, are you going to Magazine Beach, where you put the, posted information about what's happening there, right? There's the tangible, very place-based nature of the resource we're talking about, and so it seems like there's value in getting 2 prongs to that question.
But even as you say that, the idea is what's there for them. That's the most obvious one. And then what's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And how do they initiate to even be recognized? So it might be there. Because remember, the other piece that I heard is anything that's already in place, can't change it. I didn't hear the word you can't improve it. Now, but again, this is where how it is implemented. And I don't say that as a block. I say that as engagement. Because the last I want to have is anybody in the audience to further feel left out, further feel degraded. Why? Because the wheels are already on the train or the airplane that's already taken off, and I don't have energy to catch up with either one of these operations. So I'm saying that, including what Ken said. Content is so important here that people cannot believe that they're in and they're not going to receive. But the observation of DCR and MAPC must be that we're here to genuine and get as much as we can for the purpose of initiate a possible pilot that might be used throughout, even to re-engage and improve. Not this panacea that we had it, boom, go, and then this few 10 blocks we're done with it. Because I'm sitting there for that. That anything goes down, that this is that, a pilot that grows from the decades or whatever, and it became just like that, decades or whatever, but we're on a better path. Okay? So as you're moving this, and I only made one small notation here, is that the milestone, content, and scheduling need footmarks like 25% there, 50% there, 75% there, so that this body knows what work, including the rest of you all who say what's going to be at these meetings, publicly held. What's going to be, not what you've already, what's going to be. I'm not looking to cancel the meeting, because if everything's not there, you still need to engage the public. And the only thing I heard from the public is they don't have enough time to respond. That by the time they see the public notice, it's like, oops. So I guess a week or maybe 10 days, if we can build it into the system. And I think that's reasonable for them to gradually look at any means, whether it be telephone, fly, or whatever, they can get involved if they so desire. But those are the few points that moving forward. And again, there's gonna be some misses here, but this will increase what's gonna be a better output in the final report.
I just wanna pause a second to see anyone online wants to jump in and share.
Another in person with people.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, the question, what is it that we're trying to ask? You know, what do we know? Somebody dealing with reasons.
Go ahead, Galen.
Hi, thanks. Sorry I can't be there in person, and I've been listening mostly for this whole time. But the idea that I'm interested in too is the way and process that you'll get feedback. So I think I want to make sure that we're making a distinction between ways in which the public accesses information to get information and diversify that so that we reach populations who might not be getting it, like youth and others. But also, I would love to identify ways that you are already receiving feedback and how that feedback is being taken into account, which you are doing with these surveys and giving us the raw data. And I think that's very helpful for this particular task force. And you are demonstrating receiving feedback through this task force. However, this task force is made up with people who have the time to do this on a weekday, which is really hard to be representative of an entire population. So the idea of, as part of the process, I would love to do an analysis of the way that feedback is received and incorporated, and to be critical. I think a survey is great, but if you're only getting 30 responses out of 200 attempts or whatever the raw data shows, I think it's fair to say that we're falling a little bit short. So I'm curious in this conversation so that there's a way in which that you are analyzing the way that DCR and EEA and others are actually incorporating responses very, very clearly. And one thing I'd like to point out too, and I mentioned this to the undersecretary, is I personally have a hard time knowing who in the agency to contact, who to talk to. There's a lot of opacity in the bureaucracy, which makes it very challenging for advocates to feel like we can be heard or effective or build relationships. So I think another side point to bring onto this is to analyze how you are being, accessible, and not just through the EJ team, which is very accessible. So I thank you for that. But there's a whole agency behind you who acts and makes decisions, and we have no idea. And so knowing that there's the ability to make direct relationships and contact in order to provide that feedback, I think is something to incorporate into this process of recommendations.
I mean, thank you. I think it seems to me that I can't read this form, but that some of the questions might be, do you know who to contact, or are you receiving communications from, or what events have you attended? Sort of where's the gap between what DCR and EEA are doing as compared to what the goal is. So in order to measure how we're not meeting the goal, just sort of have to ask residents, what is it that they know? And that might tell us what they don't and where to fill that gap.
And I wonder at Lawrence's point too, like where are you spending your time? What's missing? What would make you go?
What places do you attend for
Yeah, but again, I'm also looking to have that be the agency do their own internal analysis of just those same exact questions.
Yeah.
Which you have in this process, but like to flip the script and you do the same, right?
Yep.
Where are you getting your information from? And task force are fine, but they're a small snippet of it. I think the voices that need to be heard.
No, that's a very good point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just maybe just going back to the tangible, but I'm thinking about getting the word like content, message matter. So we have the location, we have the time, but like, what's the question on there? It's like what's gonna is it? Do you know where to get swim lessons? I don't know. I mean, that's what it's like. Want to sail? I don't know what goes on that flyer that goes everywhere. And redirect me back to the agenda on
But
that.
that's where I'm getting at too, like, what are the trying to,
Yeah.
what are we trying to elicit from the community?
I'll jump in here real fast, and for at least the fall engagement, the idea, as I understand it, was that the questions that we would ask at the public hearings are the same questions that were asked at the focus groups, with the idea being, we're having a focus group because we understand that that population might not be well represented at the public hearing. So I think that's what we're trying to get at with this conversation is, who do we expect might not show up for the public hearings that we'll host in the springtime that we want to focus attention on, to ask those questions, whatever we decide that content is. But I also am cognizant of what time we're at right now in the meeting, and I know that I think Sasha wanted to talk through the Cambridge Housing Authority and this specific focus group that's on the table. And whether we want to agree on it as the task force to move forward, at least with this, but perhaps I don't know if others are on the table as well.
And just one follow-up to that, so this conversation of what are we asking, and then that would inform like who and where we're reaching out to, that's the focus of the February meeting, next task force meeting. That's what
Okay,
happened.
because I don't think we came to any agreement here of I'm saying things in my head of, like, if I were to meet with folks to say, this is what we're presenting, I would wanna know, well, are you even aware? Do you care? It's being really honest to say, what is it, how can we help you? Like, we're doing this because there are organizations that have input to how the river is used. And you know that you can have a voice. And how do you wanna have your voice be heard? I don't know, I'm just throwing out what side.
Sorry.
Right. I mean, I don't want to be identified. I'm sorry.
I just as a follow-up to that, I'm wondering, rather than waiting until the February meeting to kind of carry this, the good ideas, I feel like we're getting some of that done. Is there a way we can, set up some sort of collaborative online document, or even have a very small intermediate meeting or something to kind of continue this through to our February meeting rather than just.
Can I make an amendment to your suggestion? Is there time, there isn't, but I guess could we dedicate just a couple minutes for people to just jot down in a sticky note? What do we all think we want to ask? Because I feel like that's the question, isn't it? What are we trying to understand from the community?
Yeah.
Because there's been so much thought and thinking happening right now, kind of to your point about instead of waiting for February, while we do have to wait for February to get into the weeds, can we just pull out some thoughts that people have top of mind and jot them in order to record what is it that we want to ask the community?
In the smaller
focus group
discussions.
Correct.
I would encourage in that framing, really this is information that you all need to write the report. Correct. So if you're thinking about the report, you're thinking about this final product that you are creating, what is the information that you need as task force members to write this report? I think that is
to inform the report.
Yeah, to inform the report.
If I may just inject this. Take the words that we've already heard, which is how painful this is. It used to be, and again, you're talking about in there, churches used to have a spiritual tent on the river. There used to be, well, I want to make sure we uncover it. So I can be heard. There used to be Kite Festival where people came down. They made their own, wherever, boxes, cars, and they flew them up in the air. But when those things are removed and there's nothing put in place, individuals get disengaged. They don't bring family, they don't build, they don't build that home to use that time because we're gonna have that area. I mean, Cambridge is still full of trees, so who wants to take the kite and stuff? But again, taking words from Ken, this is all painful. So if you're gonna be out there to engage what you're talking about, much rather than people saying once upon a time, but because somehow we were left off, nothing happened. So there's a lot of wonderful things that are on right now. And that's because the partnerships have always been in place for 20 or more years. And the connections have been made here before you and still have. But there's no real anybody to say, hey, we really mean what we need. So Ken said it right, it's painful. And now again, here we are, June, real fast. So how are you guys gonna help take away that pain? So the little voices that you wanna hear and that the correct surveys can have the questions in there and get the quantified answers from to develop what needs or truly need to be there. So I mean, for me, there's many points up, well, Bark thing's supposed to have a lot of points on it, it's supposed to have enough to get you fit. But this is how painful it is. And I come on 5th generation, so I've seen where people had gloriously made time to be involved in all this, and I watched the same way how absent-mindedly they were districts out. So what do we do? So I mean, there's still churches in Cambridge, they might be fighting to try and find parking spaces for their congregations, but I'm certain they would like to have a venue welcoming down for a tent or whatever, and children don't change. So you give them somewhere they can experiment something that they had in their house or in online that they want their parents to buy, and they got kids, they'd be there. And that would be the good space for you all to say, hey, this is what you could do futuristically. Furthermore, any more ideas and get them popped.
Can I ask for the Audubon group? The Audubon is a part of you guys, right, for DCR?
It's its own separate thing. I mean, you guys work very closely with us. And trustees.
I didn't even know. I thought Audubon was a part of DCR. So sorry, I'm just.
I'm
They're
a
land-
commissioner and I'm finding it all the time.
They own a lot of properties.
Yeah,
So there's like, I think a lot of
because
conversations.
they're up, they have they're
They have a
running
property.
over Magazine Beach,
Yeah.
so they do things with the city and they're.
Trustees too, I think is the other large.
Yeah, the
landholder.
trustees of the reservation.
Yeah.
But they don't have a location like Mass Audubon does,
Correct.
anchored on. an
So-
elevation.
Okay, so something like you guys just outlined.
Yeah.
Do you even know what DCR is and what they do?
Oh, yeah, I
Like,
mean, I
that's
think
just
that's,
a plain question.
and EEA, people have no idea what EEA stands for.
No, but you know, we don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, what type of activities, that was gonna be my next thing, groups and activities, do you know what's available to you?
Because, well, if I could just expand,
Yeah.
because I think maybe a recommendation is this sort of campaign of DCR and EEA
To
to
say
get
what's
the word out about what is it that we do
Yeah. And what you don't.
and
Yes,
what we
what
don't
you
do.
don't do. And what maybe as a partner, because the Conservancy is a partner of DCR, as a partner, what is done, or what's a friend group of DCR, to explain, because there's some kind of trail bonus, I don't know, grant program, right, that is done with DCR that I saw.
Mass Trails
Mass
is
Trails.
connected.
But now,
That is
do
state.
you know what Mass Trails, do you know, we have at Ringe, the Alpine Ski Club? Well, could you incorporate something where kids can go and learn how to do, what is it? It's not for me, because I'm not gonna be in the cold, but when you're doing but an opportunity, so things like that, to have those kind of conversations. But it's a larger scope where you are building, like we said, the network, the ambassadorship, the communication. So I like the fact that we can put it on stickies, but these are the things that if I, to go to a group to understand. Because one thing too is and we can all attest to, some people are long-term residents of Cambridge. Others have just moved in the last 10 years and they have no clue. They're just like, we just want to ride our bikes and be nice, but they don't they're not aware of what the history is.
How long have you lived here? Could be a question to ask.
Yeah.
That can be a trick, that can
Oh.
feel alienating
Okay.
to folks if we're, especially if we're trying to be inclusive of new arrivals and immigrant
Or do you
communities,
know-
that the how long question can feel, that's a
Yeah,
tough
that's a good point. Yeah.
That's
We
fair.
tend to try to be careful. of
But
that.
that's where I was trying to go to it, like, before we go and look for the people and the places, like, what do we wanna actually tell them or get from them to help them understand, like, what are we trying to pull out? Because you may
To get
not,
them to engage.
yeah, we may not get a high level, and that's the other thing,
Yeah.
level set expectations,
Gotta
you
get
might
them to
get 3
engage.
people who show up.
Yeah.
Right. But that's also the barrier, because
Yeah.
most of these new groups don't have longevity, but they are frontline on everything. So I hear what you're saying, not wanting to.
It's just a trick, there's definitely, there's
Tricky. It
lots
is
of
very tricky. Very
ways to
tricky.
think
Yeah.
about it, and there's some
Triggers.
ways to kind of like frame inclusive questions.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, this is where like in February, we can actually like kind of think about that category of like engagement with the community. I mean like a history of engagement with the community in the central question we're asking. And we can think about how we're going deeper on that.
Sure.
Or, yeah, like sense of belonging, how.
Do you feel a sense
Do you
of
feel like you
belonging in your
belong?
community? Do you feel like Cambridge is a welcoming community? Sorry, Ken.
Could I make a comment, please?
Yes, please go ahead, Ken.
Yes. We seem to want to have the question, what is the question? And if I were going to answer that, or the question I'd like to know is how DCR and its sister brother agencies could come up with a master plan for Magazine Beach, let's say, with so little involvement of the direct community that is in. That for me would be a very interesting meeting to understand an honest sort of revelation of how could that occur. And this could be the commission that's committed to having that not occur ever again, because we want to hear from you, the community, how you would have liked to weigh in from the beginning through the end of the plan. That's an interesting meeting. I would even call that a fun meeting, to hear about how we got here in honesty and truth. And then the other thing, the question of how long have you been here? I'm going to suggest we can't avoid that question, because on the Cambridge side, we are as divided as America is divided between the people who have been here a great while and the people who are brand new. And we just should own the truth of it's not a potential schism, it's an actual schism. It's how we got here. And these two groups, maybe within this process, could better recognize each other and understand what they're talking about. Anybody that tells you something smart about Cambridge today will tell you that we're divided between the bike people and the long-term residents. And our government is split down the middle. So if we can't talk about the truth, then what is the purpose? And so to pretend that the question of how long you've been here is too troublesome to even imagine is to contribute to the future ineffectiveness of any effort. The truth will set you free.
Galen's, wanna turn it over
I just want
to.
to chime in and say I do not appreciate that division and that language and that blanket statement that increases and encourages division. As somebody who is a homeowner and been in the neighborhood more than 25 years, I think that language is harmful and hurtful. And I really am disheartened by that statement. And I feel like the contributions that I make to the community are discounted simply because I ride a bike and don't want to get killed on the pathways, I think is something that I think you need to reflect upon. And you may not know me, and I think that's fine, but I think that you shouldn't discount people who want to meaningfully contribute to the community and their conversations. Though I was born in Virginia, I've been in Boston since 2002, and I feel that I've heard this rhetoric in the past, and I'm feel it's a shameful statement. So yeah, I really don't appreciate that.
I could deal with everything but the shameful part. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I came here over 50 odd years ago to Cambridge. I learned from a member of St. Paul African Methodist Episcopal Church what belonging meant. I was appointed to a building fund committee, and one of the older members said to me, "It's a very nice committee, Mr. Reeves, but there are no longtime Cambridge people on the committee." I said, "How could you say that? Mr. Johnson, who is a very respected member of this community, has been here for a very long time." She responded to me, "You don't understand. He just came here in 1923. There will always be embedded in the question of Cambridge how long you have been here and how long a certain segment thinks you should have been here before you really have certain opinions." Now, it's just the facts. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. I also am subject to it, but I'm a student of history. So I like to know what people think and try to understand their vantage point.
Now,
And
Mr. Reeves,
unfortunately, they use
I think we're gonna,
the
I'm
short-
sorry, guys, sorry, I just don't wanna folks to interrupt each other, so why don't we let Mr. Ken finish, and then, if you'd like, Galen, if you'd like to add something, then, and then we'll close it there and move to the next, if that's okay with folks. So,
Sorry to
Mr.
go-
Ken,
yeah,
Mr.
sorry
Ken,
to
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to go on. I'm sorry that the short form has been adopted of the bicycle people, but that's what comes up because that moves as a big lobby and it can flood any email campaign. It just is overwhelming to the long-term community that doesn't operate through that mode. So if it's a bad name, they gave it. It's not me. I'm just calling the truth the truth.
Thank you. I think if I can make just a suggestion in the spirit of including everyone's perspective, can we go back and think about a way to incorporate that piece of belonging, proximity to the issue, proximity to the location? I think this report can include both of those things. One is the fact that people may have been here for 30 years and still feel excluded, as well as there are clear divisions. And we can't ignore the clear divisions that exist. So just to sort of challenge us, and maybe we can come back with a proposal of how, and we can make a decision in person at our next meeting of how to address those two issues of belonging and proximity, as well as the division that exists right now. I don't know how
So
that.
I think it ties in, and I'm not gonna, the way that I would tie it in is that the whole premise of this task force is the division part of those who have not had their voices a part of the table, but they've had long-term residency in the city. That comes with a history, which brings us to where we are now. And that history builds into where we want to say we've seen it, but we also want to now, how can we change it? And how do we address it going forward? So there is still a divisiveness, but it doesn't have to be specifically about, people who are bicyclists or if you're new to the community. However, being new to the community, you come in with a different set of views and viewpoints, which are sometimes really great, but without knowing the history, you won't know how to move forward in a way that addresses what the ills of the past. And the ills of the past is what has brought us here, where we didn't have, certain communities didn't have a voice at the table. So I think we don't have to be as specific, but at what Lawrence pointed out, that disagreements will be expressed constructively, but we have to focus on the ideas rather than the individuals. So, it's great that everybody, Ken and Galen, you guys were able to voice it. But we can still build it in, because in the ends of ends, what we're trying to get to is how do the voices that haven't had a chance to be a part of the discussion get to be a part of the discussion?
And that's for now and going forward.
Correct.
And, as a committed regionalist, it's for Cambridge, but also for Greater Boston and the Common.
And EEA and
Right.
DCR.
So that's Commonwealth
all
wide.
together.
Yeah.
So how do we build that network and have that ambassadorship like that?
But I thought Representative Decker had put point to it, that if you look around and everybody's the same, then that's room for this work, regardless of whatever. But I'm not envisioning this even as divisive, because even with divisiveness, there needs to be individuals who can speak civilly and take it that way to extract ideas to move forward. The only thing from those who haven't had the voice, and I'm specifying now the aspect of June,
Can you catch her?
is this time factor. We have never been anywhere where we actually had time to build this others. Time has always been of the urgency. So I'm hoping that we can be very specific.
Can we just take, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can we just take, before you leave, I know we're gonna lose folks. Can we just take the vote that we have to take about the minutes?
Sure.
I just don't wanna, that important sort of, the vote that needs to be on the record. Is that okay that we take that vote and then we can continue?
Yes.
I apologize, Lee, it's a great conversation.
No, do you mind if we do it quickly?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Can I motion? Yeah, can I motion? All right, can I motion? Oh, you can motion.
I will motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I second. Everyone say aye if you're, or I guess, do we need to
We
run through
have
the,
to roll
we'll
call
do the
for the
roll call
tiebreaker.
quickly.
Sorry.
Laura, you're a yay?
I'm a yay.
Great, thank you. All right, can we move quickly through the list?
Under secretary?
I abstained because I was not at the last meeting.
You can still.
Abstain. Derek?
Approved.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ken?
I think I should abstain as well.
You can still vote on minutes even if you weren't there.
Oh.
You can vote to approve because you're putting minutes in.
Well, how would I know the truth or falsity of what's in the minutes?
Because the motion.
I abstain. Thank you.
You can abstain.
You can also abstain, but you can.
Thank you.
Pastor Battle? Pastor Battle here? Galen?
Yeah. I'm still on.
Galen, if you voted, we saw you take yourself off mute, but if you voted, we didn't hear it.
We just need a yay or a different vote for the minutes.
Yay for me, if you're talking to me.
Thanks, Ken. Angela is not present. Fran is not present. Lawrence?
Yay.
Thank you.
Sheila?
Yay.
Steven? Had to step out. Denise?
I'm sure, yeah.
Thomas? Is absent and David is absent.
Didn't say me, but
Oh, and Logan.
I like them too.
Okay, with Logan, we have 9 yeses, so the minutes from the December 1st
Thank you.
meeting are approved.
Thank you. Sorry to have interrupted you, Lawrence.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, just trying, process is very important. But the only thing I want to wrap up with is, again, we're faced with the dilemma of expediently getting towards June, while everybody else has had time to interact over a nice period of time to get their achieved list of concerns. But I'm not saying that it's later, but I certainly want to speak of getting as much done with what we've got. But I am going to continue to emphasize the conditions of pertinence that Ken is carefully done. And the only thing that makes me proceed to move forward is the words from John Lewis and the John Lewis bill, which is I'm out there making some trouble. So if we can stay focused on that, we'll get where we need to in a small time.
I think we're losing folks. I think we can do the focus groups without a vote.
vote? You can
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
If
Is there another vote?
But I think that's what the next meeting is for.
the next meeting is, yeah.
Oh, wait, y'all, do we need another
Let's
vote?
vote. So
on
that's-
I think we do, but we've lost, I don't think we're gonna get quorum. Yeah.
I think the question is to move ahead with the, particularly Cambridge Housing Authority.
With the focus group.
Which this group has
That I
already
think we all
elevated.
agree with, right?
Yes.
I
Okay,
think we should, yeah.
Yeah.
but we don't need an official vote,
No.
so we'll go to our February meeting. And if we need a vote at the February meeting, then we'll do a vote then.
Correct.
Great.
Because they're gonna be returning with information that we need. to
And that's
have,
where we're
right?
drilling down
So-
on what's happening.
Right, exactly.
They're gonna go.
Yeah.
But we're not finished yet, are we?
No.
Oh.
I mean, well, I think we're close, but we're not totally done.
Well,
That was
because-
it was a question of whether we needed that
Oh, okay.
focus group vote.
Cause I would say if you pop up the participant list, we can see who's still in there.
Can you see the
Derek
list?
and Galen, but who else is left, or is the rest interpreters?
I think it's a lot of the interpreters.
We still have quorum right
We
now.
do.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay. Should we take a vote then for the focus groups now, since?
I think it would be helpful, I have a meeting scheduled with the Cambridge Housing Authority tomorrow, and it would be helpful if I could come to them and say we would like
The
to
task
do
force
this
wants to do
versus we hope we can do this, and I still need to bring it back to the task force, so if folks are okay to agree that we will have that, I can get information from the Cambridge Housing Authority about what works for timing
Yeah.
and bring some suggestions back to you all before the February meeting, so that at the February meeting, we can vote on the specifics for.
All right, so can we get a motion?
I motion
To-
that the
Great.
necessity for.
Thank you.
second.
Can I get a second? Great, Logan.
Logan seconded?
Yep.
Okay, so we're
Can we
gonna,
go through quickly through the roll call?
we'll vote, so under secretary,
Yes.
commissioner,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Derek. Not here.
Yes.
Derek is a yes. Kyle,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Pastor Battle, Pastor Battle on. Galen,
Yes.
Laura is not here, Angela is not here, Fran is not here, Lawrence,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Steven had to step out, Denise.
Yes.
Thomas is not here, and David is not here, so one
Thomas
four carries.
online.
Oh,
There's a Thomas on.
It's a different.
It's different times.
Oh.
that was 10 yes votes, so that passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all, I'll report back.
Thank you,
Conversation
Sasha.
tomorrow.
Is there any sort of last business that we need to make sure we,
Where would we
no,
be?
okay.
We could close.
In person,
Yeah,
definitely
next meeting.
seems like there is
Get a lot
strong
more
support
done.
around the table to do in person, and we will work on making sure that happens.
Great. And so we said that we would alternate, right, for the for the meetings, not the hearings, but the meetings between EEA, DCR. Should we go to DCR next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Cambridge.
Or Cambridge.
Where's DCR?
The
Pembroke
downtown.
Plaza.
Yeah.
Oh, the transportation.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
Is there a motion to close the meeting?
Are we ready to close? Yeah?
I don't know, cause I'll still talk. I don't wanna get us in trouble, but you know.
No deliberation.
Okay. I guess I'll just write my post-its.
All right, can
Can
I
I-
motion?
Can I
Can
make a
have motion
suggestion?
to close?
I'm sorry, just real quick. I wonder, this is Galen. I wonder if it's possible to do the in-person closer to the site. I mean, coming into 10 Park Plaza seems fine for public transit and all, but if there's ability to do these meetings collectively in person, either in Cambridgeport or something along those lines, that might get better in-person attendance.
Why don't we look at the library? Is that?
Yeah, we can, the library or CRLS.
All right, so we will do the next meeting in Cambridge. Thank you, Galen. Can I have a motion to close the meeting? Motion, Logan.
Okay.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
That was Sheila?
Sheila. And we'll go through the list.
Okay, undersecretary?
Yes.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Logan?
Yes.
Derek? Kyle?
Eric's hearing's on you.
Derek, are you able to voice a yes or no? Okay. Kyle? I believe, Ken?
Yes.
Pastor Battle? There, Galen?
Yes.
Laura, I believe Angela's not here, Francisca's not here, Lawrence?
Close.
Let's close the meeting, yes or no?
Sheila?
Yes.
Stephen is still not here, Denise?
Yes.
Thomas, not here, and David, so. We have 8. But,
So in a closed forum, you can, it is the majority of the people who are still present in the meeting from the original forum. So you are, that's why otherwise the meetings could go on forever. Just for the closed vote.
Thanks for the,
I rolled deep in open meeting law.
Yeah, super everyone who attended online. Wow. So we'll be back next time.
Great.
I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye, Logan. Please take sandwiches.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
Well.
And also, can I collect your stickies?
Yeah.
You worked so hard, you have like a tree of stickies.
Yeah, I was trying to, you know, this
I love
last, that thought, yeah.
Planners love
Yeah.
stickies. Planner, we love a sticky.
I was